Hi, my name is Ryan Johnson. I'm president of R.M.J. Tactical. R.M.J. Tactical designs and manufactures tactical tomahawks for the military and law enforcement communities. We make the Eagle Talon, the Kestrel, and the Hammer Forged Shrike. You can check out our products at rmjtactical.com. What I would like to talk to you about today is an invention called the R.U.M.P. It's a rigid universal MOLLE platform. This is a patent-pending design that solves a lot of problems that I've come across with MOLLE PALS gear. What is it that you don't like about using MOLLE PALS gear? A couple of years ago I started using a ruck that had MOLLE PALS webbing on it. I used a Maxpedition bag that had MOLLE PALS webbing on it. I was using a vest with MOLLE PALS webbing on it. Why? Because I wanted to see what my customers were going through when they were using the Tomahawk, because they were all talking about carrying their stuff on MOLLE PALS gear. I was extremely frustrated with what I found. When I would go hiking with this stuff, I found that there were a lot of problems that I couldn't believe were out there. The first problem that I came across was that there was too much shifting in the pouches and gear. When you have a piece of MOLLE gear, an engineer behind a desk determines how tight your gear is, not you. Whether it's push dot or the zip tie style adapters or hinge type adapters, they all have a preset tension and you're stuck with it. Here's a typical push dot style pouch. This is a great little pouch. It's well designed, it's well made. However, push dot has a certain amount of slop built into it to allow you to push that snap back up under there and snap it closed. And to get that snap back in and around, you have to have the dexterity of a 14-year-old Asian girl. It's ridiculous. But then once it's in place, it sits here and shifts around like this. That's frustrating to me, and it's just a little small pouch on a bag. I can only imagine how frustrating it is when you have a full loadout of pouches on your vest and it's all shifting around, you're trying to do stuff. This is a pretty common problem, whether it's push dot, whether it's the MOLLE claws, whether it's the zip tie styles. This preset tension is something that designers of tactical gear apparently are just comfortable with. I wasn't. The next thing I didn't like about MOLLE PALS gear was a lot of it had single point failure issues. What do I mean by single point failure? I mean that if one component fails, everything fails. And push dot's a good example of that. If the snap goes on push dot, well, then the pouch is going to go. It may take a little bit, but it eventually is going to work itself loose. It's going to get more and more loose. And you see that with the zip tie styles, typically in the fastening mechanism. You see that with the hinge style, both in the hinge and the little snap feature. You see that across the board in MOLLE PALS gear. And it's ridiculous for us to send people out into combat with single point failure. You should have redundancy in everything. A third problem I have with a lot of MOLLE PALS gear is the lack of versatility. Versatility is the name of the game in tactical gear. You have to be able to do lots of things with it. You just can't afford to carry stuff that's a one-trick pony. But that's how all MOLLE pouches are. If you have a MOLLE-only pouch, you have the most useless pouch in the world if it's not on MOLLE gear, because you can't adapt it to other types of gear. You can't put it on old style gear or foreign gear or other surfaces. It's only good for PALS webbing. To me, this is not acceptable for modern combat. What I decided to do was sit down, go back to the drawing board, and try to figure out something better, something that was tight, that was versatile, and that was tough. I wanted something bulletproof. And this is what I came up with. It's the R.U.M.P. Rigid Universal MOLLE Platform. What it is a piece of plastic, injection molded plastic. It is made out of DuPont ST801 super tough nylon. That's nylon 6.6 with an impact modifier. What that means is it's very flexible, it's very durable. You can beat this with a hammer and it will just bend, it won't break. It is about 4 inches by 4 inches. It's an array of slots that make buckles and an array of holes. Each buckle has 3 slots. You can see the slots here. Right here, this is the third slot for both buckles. What that slot allows me to do, the 3 slots allows me to take a piece of webbing and lock it in place. Here's how you use the 3-slot buckle on the R.U.M.P. Take a piece of 1-inch nylon webbing, put it in here like this. You go up, back through, and then I take that tail that's left over, pull it through, and lock it in place. I can take that. It goes through the PALS webbing on your vest or ruck, what have you, It comes back through this middle set of slots and back through like that. It goes back through the second row of PALS webbing on your vest. It comes up through the buckle like so, and then I can cinch it tight as I want. And then, just like the top, I go back through again and pull it down tight. It locks it here and here. Once I'm through, I can tuck that back up in there to make it nice and neat. I have 2 rows here. I can add a 3rd row if I want. Some people will ask, well, why do you do the 3-slot style buckle on the rump? Why is that part of your patent instead of just sewing it on? I hate straps that are sewn onto things, especially onto plastic items. Inevitably, you'll end up either breaking the stitches or you end up breaking a component, and you're stuck with a useless strap. If I want to replace the strap, all I have to do is undo it from the buckle and put a new piece in. If the strap gets damaged or burned or what have you, all I have to do is find a piece of 1-inch nylon webbing or any type of 1-inch webbing. But where are you going to find that? Well, you've got about 10 extra feet of it on your ruck. So you take that gives you, it's easily field repairable. So what can I do with this? Well, I can adapt hard plastic items to MOLLE. For instance, if I have a tomahawk scabbard or a gun holster, I can MOLLE it up to my vest. This is our tomahawk scabbard for the Shrike Hammer Forged tomahawk. As you can see, I've got it bolted to a rump adapter. It is rock solid. It's not going anywhere. The only shifting I'm going to have is from the actual vest. This piece is not going anywhere, and I've got triple redundancy in holding it down. I've got 3 screws holding this piece down. The way I use the screws, we use screw posts that go through these holes, a rubber washer, and an 832 steel Phillips screw. You notice that there's also an array of holes other than screw post holes. I have 4 holes on the outside. Those are sized for 550 cord. I can take 550 cord and tie things up. So if I want to adapt a MOLLE pouch, I can use 550 cord and go up to an unusual surface. I can also adapt to unusual surfaces using these holes. That's also sized for a tech screw, or for a number 10 machine screw, or a wood screw. So I could take this and literally screw this right up against this stool here. I could put it in the inside of a vehicle like a Humvee, an aircraft. Right now there's not a lot of good MOLLE solutions for the inside of a vehicle. What do you have? You have the glorified seat cover thing with PALS webbing on it, which is exactly where you don't want stuff. This allows you to put stuff anywhere you can put a screw. You can put your MOLLE PALS holster, radio pouch, mag holders, you name it. I can also, because of the holes and because of the webbing, adapt it to irregular gear. For instance, I can adapt MOLLE pouches to World War II gear. I can do it to old Russian gear. It doesn't matter because of the versatility of the webbing and the holes. The next thing I can do is I can do MOLLE to MOLLE pouches. I can take a MOLLE pouch, MOLLE it onto the adapter, and MOLLE this to a vest, to a ruck, what have you. So if I want like a 5-pack of 20 round mags up on my vest, I take one on one side and one on the other, and I MOLLE it down. The nice thing is that it is as tight as I want it to be. Another nice thing about the rump is that I can take rump adapters. They are identical, take the webbing out of one and actually overlay them. So I can put several rumps behind each other, actually carry extras under a mag pouch or under a holster, and have spares for later, spares for other people, and not take up any real estate. I can also adapt MOLLE pouches to a belt. You can use this 3-slot type arrangement to make a nice secure belt loop. You can have it to where it hangs down like this. You can also bring it back and have it to where it rides the pouch up high. It allows you to take a MOLLE only pouch and secure it to a belt. The rump is so configurable that you can do a lot of things with it, things probably I wouldn't even think of. we can take 2 rump adapters and make a drop leg rig out of it. And there's another video that will be published showing how you can make a drop leg rig out of 2 rumps. It weighs 1/3 the weight of most drop leg rigs. It takes up a lot less real estate, and it does the job. It's very firm, it's very flexible, it's very adaptable. How do you use a carabiner when you're using MOLLE gear? I bet you do what I used to do. I would take the carabiner and just clip it right onto the PALS webbing, right? And what happens? Eventually, if you end up with a heavy load, or you're going a long distance, what ends up happening is you end up pulling the stitching out on the PALS webbing and messing up your vest or your ruck. Why? Because you're putting all the load on 2 stitch points. That's pretty typical, and there's some solutions out there. You've got the Grimlock, for instance. This is a nice little invention. It's very handy. It allows you to put a D-ring type carabiner onto PALS webbing. Unfortunately, if you're trying to do heavy loads, it ends up with the same problem. You have 2 stitch points that you're distributing the load across. I use them for light things. What do you do if you're really serious about putting D-ring on MOLLE? Well, the way the rump is configured, every buckle on this thing can carry a D-ring. When I have this looping over, I can put a D-ring in there. So I can put 9 D-rings on a rump. Instead of distributing the load up between 2 stitch points, I'm distributing the load potentially between 18 stitch points. So you can really hang something on there. It also allows you to put a D-ring behind things. For instance, if I'm carrying a pouch or a mag pouch, I can literally have D-rings behind it or even dropping down below it so that I'm not wasting real estate. I can have D-rings where I want it, and that's not wasted space. Here's an example of a knife scabbard adapted to PALS webbing using a rump. This is the Ontario Rat 3. What I've done is I've adapted this scabbard to PALS webbing. You can see it's very firm, very snug. It's also very low profile. That hole pattern is fairly common. The hole spacing on a rump, the screw post holes are 3/4 of an inch apart in a grid. Blade Tech holsters have that hole pattern. Blackhawk Serpa holsters have that hole pattern. A lot of the Kydex knife scabbards have that hole pattern. You can also take and drill right into the rump if you need to and make your own hole pattern. The rump solves a lot of the issues I had with MOLLE PALS gear. Because of the way the buckles are designed, I can tighten my gear as tight as I want. I'm in charge of how tight it is. It solves the problem of single point failure issues by multiple redundancies. There's triple redundancy in every feature. There's so much redundancy in this, I could literally take one of my tomahawks, chop the thing in half, give you part of it, keep part of it. We both have enough of the platform to MOLLE up a single mag pouch. There's redundancy in the holes. The third thing is that it is extremely versatile. It's not just good for MOLLE PALS gear. I can, with a long enough piece of webbing, I can strap down cargo with it. I can adapt MOLLE PALS to almost any kind of surface, to walls, to vehicles, to trees, to old military gear, to foreign military gear. If you'd like to find out more information about the rump, you can find it on our website. It's rmjtactical.com. Again, this is the patent pending rump, rigid universal MOLLE platform.